Hello and welcome to the Season 4 recap of Elite. None of us asked for this, we were all very happy with Season 3, but we got a Season 4, so here we go. So the season opens up with Guzman being questioned by the police, asking what happened that night. We see what looks like a girl in a party costume face down in the pool, and there are also fireworks in the background, so the show will be leading up to this moment. Cut to swimming practice at school, and we see Guzman smiling at another girl, and already I'm thinking, this is not good for him and Nadia. Is back at school as well, and he looks well, but his mom has been fired and they have this new principal. He's kind of like a cool CEO tech bro type. Turns out that that's Ari's father, and his daughter is Ari, the girl that Guzman was flirting with. Andar is also having a bit of a flirt with a guy in the locker room named Patrick, and at this point I'm prepared for both of my favorite couples to not make it. Patrick, by the way, who is the principal's son, so Ari's brother, soon learns that Andar actually has a boyfriend, Omar, who walks in. Patrick also tries to defend his father to the group, saying that the school is a mess and his father needed to come and clean things up, and there's a tense confrontation. So it's pretty much the old kids versus the new kids at this point, but there are only two new kids. So this new principal is awful. He wants to give the boys, Samuel and Omar, an exam in order to have them prove that they deserve their scholarship at the school. We also find out that the principal has a third child, Mencia, and she seems to be having a flirtationship situation with Rebe. So as predicted, things aren't going great between Nadia and Guzman. She's in New York, remember, and Guzman is frustrated and Nadia's giggling and she feels kind of ridiculous about the webcamming, so she just changes the subject. The next day at school, as the first family, I guess, arrives, the group has arranged a sit-in to protest this exam that might have Samuel and Omar kicked out of school. Mencia joins them, by the way, and she says that the only way that they can get her father to change his mind is through Ari. So they dispatch Guzman to get cozy with her. Guzman doesn't want to do it at first, but eventually Omar convinces him to help out. Mencia and Rebe go out and they have fun. They kind of cute together, but it's obvious that Mencia is super into this, and Rebe isn't quite ready, so even though she's having fun, she leaves. Guzman asks Ari out for a drink after class so that they can start over. Meanwhile, Patrick still likes Andar and kind of suggests that he'll give Omar the exam answers if Andar goes out with him. Since Ari is the one who has her father's ear though, Andar doesn't have to go out with Patrick. Ari and Guzman do end up going out and she opens up to him about losing her mother, and they actually kind of get along and they have a laugh. He asks her if she can talk to her father about letting up on this whole exam thing. By the way, things are miserable at the principal's home. His name is Benjamin, by the way. He cuts off Mencia financially, and Mencia cruelly tells Ari that it was her idea to have Guzman go out with her. Mencia ends up going to a club with her bags packed, and she meets a man there who has a hotel room and he offers it to her. He even tells her to bill his room if she's hungry. He's about to leave when she invites him to stay with her, and the next morning she finds a pile of €100 notes on the bedside table. So even though Andar and Omar had agreed that Andar doesn't have to go to the club with Patrick, he goes anyway, without Omar, mind you. Andar has some difficult time resisting at first, but he does stop Patrick and says he won't betray Omar, even if it means helping Omar. Patrick does end up giving Omar the answers, but he's suspicious. Samuel ends up passing the exam, and Omar gets 97%, and Benjamin is suspicious, but for now, he's safe. By the end of the episode, we see that Ari is the one who is in the pool, but she survives. In episode 2, Mencia is still hooking up with this man who, apart from paying a minor to sleep with him, seems nice enough, but he is a predator, so this is an act. In fact, I recall Mencia saying that she skipped a grade, so she's actually really young. Anyway, her family's trying to get a hold of her because she's meant to be at this important fancy do for the youngest heir in Europe, but she's ignoring them. We find out soon enough that this heir, Philippe, is going to be coming to the school. We also get a scene with Ari in the hospital bed and the doctor saying that she had quite a bit of alcohol in her blood, and Benjamin asks whether she was pushed or whether she fell, but the doctor doesn't know that yet. Guzman ends up apologizing to Ari, talking to her. He admits that some of their date wasn't actually a setup, they did really have a connection. They end up making up, and Samuel picks up on the vibe and jokingly tries to get a rise out of Guzman, saying that he might hit on her, but Guzman tells Samuel that Ari is out of his league. Mencia eventually tells Rebe that she really likes her, and she asks why Rebe seems to be pulling away even though she seems to like her back. They make out and Benjamin interrupts them, and I'm not really into this. I think it's kind of inappropriate for Mencia to be pushing it so much, especially since she knows that Rebbe is uncomfortable already. Later on, when the sisters talk, Ari, who seems to be Benjamin's little spy, tells her that she's not going to allow Mencia to be with Rebbe because Rebbe is bad news. Mencia tries to get a hold of Rebbe, sending her several messages, but when Rebbe doesn't reply, Mencia runs off to be with the hotel man. Mencia seems pretty intense though. I guess she's desperately lonely, in which case I do feel bad for her because she's pretty alone even in her own family. A woman approaches Mencia at the bar and thinks that she's a sex worker and kind of gives her a warning. At this point, I wasn't really sure if she was just on this lady's turf or if the lady was just giving her a genuine warning about a potentially dangerous man. Meanwhile, Omar and Anda are having some issues in the bedroom, and I don't care. I actually don't care about any of the teen sex on this teen show, to be honest. But basically they decide to get in this throuple situation with Patrick. So Prince Philippe ends up arriving at the school and Cayetana introduces herself to him. She's kind of a groupie. It's a perfectly friendly and polite interaction, but Ari, ruiner of most things, comes by and asks Cayetana to clean up a spill in the cafeteria, and she's all, "Is this cleaning lady bothering you?" So this prince thing is a little bit absurd, but he has his bodyguards all around, I guess. They also all clear out the pool for him to swim. By the pool, him and Cayetana seem to get along, and she tells the OG gang that she wants to invite him along to a party. They end up inviting Mencia and Ari as well, and it's a towel party, which means everybody can only come in a towel, which means shenanigans. Nadia video calls Guzman while he's at the party, and it looks like she's losing a little faith. Their lives are so different, and at this point, because I have such a short memory, I'm okay with them breaking up because they're young and I don't like seeing them struggle. Ari also loosens up after a few drinks, and it's a pity because she's actually laughing and having fun. Pity because she seems quite unhappy otherwise, to be honest. Her and Samuel end up hooking up. I don't like this because he knows that she's drunk, he's sober, so it's uncomfortable, but lucky for him, the next morning she only seems to feel mild embarrassment. Guzman does see them go off though, and he looks quite disappointed. He ends up telling Nadia that she's right. It doesn't make sense for them to keep trying so hard to make it work, but that they should take a few days to think it over. By the end of the episode, we see that Ari is flatlining, and we also get a scene where Prince Philip tells Benjamin that he feels safe at the school and to leave all the security cameras in place. One of the security cameras shows him and Cayetana hooking up, so obviously he's a weirdo with an agenda. In episode 3, we start with Ari coding, I guess, and they're wheeling her off, and Anda is talking to an investigator saying that the 4 of them, Benjamin and his 3 kids, are like a cancer, and they arrived and basically destroyed everything they touched. So Rebbe is telling Samuel that she's pretty into Mencia, really into her, and she's sending him all these messages, but she accidentally sends those messages to Mencia. But since Mencia is equally as intense, I don't think she'll mind. Also, creepy Prince Philip appears on a screen in the school to announce that he'd like everybody to come to a ball. Nadia, meanwhile, has already changed her status to single, and Guzman isn't ready, but he's still jealous about Samuel and Ari. So Ari asks him to the ball, and he says no. He doesn't want to be anybody's sloppy seconds, and Ari lies about anything really happening between her and Samuel at the party. But Samuel had already told Guzman, so now Ari has been rejected by both Samuel and Guzman. Prince Philippe asks Cayetana to the dance, and they flirt, and I'm really nervous for her. I hope he doesn't carry her at the ball. He takes her to choose a dress, and they're having fun, trying things on, making out, and everyone on the show moves so fast it stresses me out. Anyway, I don't get this guy what his game is. Mencia and Rebbe end up drinking together and playing a game, and just as things are heating up, Rebbe's mother Sandra comes home and catches them. I didn't notice this earlier, but the woman who approached Mencia at the bar is actually Samantha. She tells Mencia that she either has to tell Rebbe, she'll tell Rebbe, or Mencia has to walk away. Andar and Omar are having issues, as usual. Andar likes the threesomes and the whole Patrick thing, and for Omar, it's kind of like, well, he's been there, done that, he just wants to chill. Andar says he's not ready to close the door on this, though. Meanwhile, Nadia and Guzman have the talk. Guzman admits that he's scared, but Nadia says that this is better than them just letting this thing slowly die. She encourages him to move on, and he says he'll try, and this is the best thing they could have done for these characters. If there's such a thing as a good and healthy breakup, this is it. He ends up going to Ari though, which, okay, I guess we're doing this. He apologizes for what happened in the car and he'd love to go to the ball with her, he says, and she says yes. So Mencia, instead of just breaking up with Rebe or telling her the truth that she's been doing some sex work, she slowly kind of ghosts her, but not really. She just always makes a lot of excuses to not be able to do things together and kind of gives her the cold shoulder a bit. Then Omar catches Patrick and Unda together and he wants to know what happened between them. I can't tell at this point yet if this is just part of their game. But anyway, Unda explains what happened that night in the club when he was wearing that Where's Waldo shirt. Unda's like, are you mad or are you into it? And in a way it looks like Omar's conflicted at first, but it turns out he's actually upset and hurt by this and he asks Unda not to hook up with Patrick again. Mencia is still seeing that old hotel man, by the way, and he lets slip that the owner of the hotel sold him his party favors. She ends up showing up at Rebe's house and telling Samantha that she knows that she's still dealing. So yeah, she's sticking around. Cayetana, by the way, notices that there's a camera in Prince Philippe's room and it's pointed right at the bed. She opens his computer and her worst suspicions are confirmed. He has a video recording of the two of them in bed together. So everyone's at this ball and Unda, who has no business looking this cute, tells a pesky Patrick to buzz off. This could ruin his relationship. So Ori walks out looking absolutely gorgeous, by the way, to a song by a band that I think is going to be my new love. And as Cayetana is about to come out to Prince Philippe, she looks absolutely miserable, but she reluctantly goes through with it. I'm kind of hoping at this point that this kills her dream or whatever of being a princess, because she doesn't seem to be the type to just smile and wave when things are a dumpster fire behind the scenes. My heart really broke for her here, though. She confronts him and he says that he can explain. He says that there was a girl who once accused him of assault and that's for his protection. Then he weirdly turns it on her, saying that everyone said that she was a con artist, but he really likes her and wanted to hear her side. He then leaves it up to her to decide, but it feels like a tactic. Omar sees messages from Patrick on Unda's phone just as Unda comes by and says that he wants to go home. Omar ends up confronting Patrick and they end up hooking up, and I hate this show now. Then, because there isn't enough crazy happening at this party, Guzman sees Ari and Samuel talking and he gets all jealous, accusing Samuel of talking to his girl, and Samuel's like, ugh, leave me out of this, and he smartly walks away. Ari is mad because Guzman is being gross and possessive and she tells him she's not about that. He apologizes and says that he'll learn, and it actually becomes kind of sweet. There's a cute nervous first kiss moment, and then, oh my god, as they embrace, Guzman sees her looking at Samuel in the mirror. By the end of the episode, Ari wakes up. In episode 4, Mencia, who seems to want to actively destroy her life, is still with this man and he asks her if she doesn't want to expand her business, and he says he knows a friend and she takes him up on the offer. Benjamin, meanwhile, tells Samuel that he wants him to be on the debate team and wants him to apply himself more at school because he sees potential. He even offers Samuel a better paying job doing administrative tasks for the school if he leaves the restaurant where he's currently working. It's suspicious as hell, and both Guzman and Omar agree. Rebe tries to surprise Mencia with something by putting it in her bag, and there she sees a hotel key card for a date for the next day. She tries to confront Mencia about it, but Mencia just lies. Prince Philippe tries to apologize to Cayetana, but she says no, and she ends things, even though he wants to make it up with her. Patrick is being a pest, and he finds Undar in the library, and he has something up his sleeve. He asks to meet Undar and Omar together so that they can talk things over. They all meet in a club where the boys try to convince Omar to take something, and Omar says no. He eventually leaves and Undar goes after him. Poor spoiled kid Patrick, he eventually does pass out though because he takes too much, and Omar is still there. Him and Undar manage to wake him up, take him home, and Omar ends up helping Patrick into the shower to clean him up and make him feel better, and it's nothing sexual. I just felt genuinely sorry for Patrick in this moment. He also says to Omar not to leave him, so Omar stays with him and he ends up falling asleep on Omar's lap. It's nice to see Patrick kind of vulnerable here as well. They've made this character just the sexual, rich, spoiled guy, which is fine, but we need more, you know? Unda, the next morning, does see the two of them spooning, and I'm guessing the three of them aren't done dealing with each other. All three of them, well, two of them, walk into school hungover the next day, and it's kind of cute to see. Benjamin, meanwhile, finds Mencia's money, and he accuses her of being mixed up with Rebe and her mother, and that's how she got the money. Mencia is pretty awful because she kind of lets him believe it. I'm done with this pairing now as well because Rebe definitely deserves better. Rebe is pretty upset. This is the second person who's hurt her, but Samuel's there for her and they're patching things up. Ari and Guzman arrive at Samuel's work at the lake house, and Guzman is acting like a typical rich douche. It's bad. He's rude throughout the dinner, and Ari notices that Guzman is making a point of mentioning that Samuel doesn't have a car, that he has to get their coats, that he needs the job at the club. It's gross and a huge step back for Guzman's character. Meanwhile, Prince Philippe arranges a surprise with Omar by kind of reserving the lake house restaurant before everybody arrives. He pretends to be a waiter for the evening, and Cayetana says all she wants is trust. They end up making up though, and I don't know about this, I don't trust him. So Mencia's client, I guess, arrives at the hotel and he already looks very scary. This isn't going to go well. As her father's trying to call on her, she's kind of getting into trouble with this guy and everyone goes out looking for her. Patrick shows up at the lake house distraught and Omar's trying to calm him down. It's innocent, but Andar confronts Patrick about this. Then Patrick tells Andar about the night of the ball when Omar came after him. It's a mess again. And I guess congratulations to Elite for making me want them to break up. So Samuel is at Ari's house a lot because they have to do debate prep together and they end up going out to look for Mencia together. And it's quite obvious that they're bonding over this. Samuel comforts her because Mencia is Ari's sister after all, and then when Guzman calls at that moment, she feels conflicted and I think she ignores the call. Rebe is the one who eventually finds Mencia. She's safe now, and Mencia ends up having a nice dinner with her family. Samuel's there because Ari invited him to stay for pizza, but Guzman also sees this. At the end of the episode, we see that Samuel gets arrested just outside of Ari's hospital room. In episode 5, it seems as though Guzman is not really giving up on Ari because the episode opens with them having fun sailing and jet skiing on the lake. As for the Omar and Andar mess, of course the truth is out that Omar slept with Patrick even after telling Andar that he didn't want him to. Omar then says that it's different because for Andar, the thing with Patrick was just sex, but Omar appears to have real feelings for Patrick and Andar is rightfully upset. So Ari kind of accosts Prince Philippe at school and she wants to know his whereabouts on Friday night because Mencia had bruises on her when she came home. He says that he was with Cayetana. He doesn't know what she's talking about. It's dodgy though. Obviously, this guy Philippe has a past. I guess we already knew it at this point, but Ari definitely also knows more than she's letting on. Cayetana, also sensing a vibe, does a search on him and it yields no results. But Ari does later warn her that guys like Philippe aren't used to hearing the word no and that she should be careful, that women should stick together. And Ari does seem to be being honest here. Patrick apologizes to Andar for the cruel way that he told him about the Omar thing, and this happens. Oh no. We then get the most awkward scene in the whole show where Andar breaks up with Omar, and I just need to get this over with. Ari and Guzman are in the library talking about having dinner at her place, and Guzman isn't really keen on this idea. Then Samuel and Benjamin show up, and Benjamin tells Ari that Samuel will be coming to dinner so that they can go over their debate arguments. Suddenly Guzman wants to go. So Mencia's hotel man is still texting her, asking her why she blocked him. Rebe wants to call the police and Mencia's like, no, I've got this. I guess that the storyline isn't done. He eventually finds her and apologizes and he offers to drive her home and she agrees. Rebe's mother sees all of this, records it, shows it to Rebe, which good. Mencia actually tells Rebe that her mother saw them together another night at the hotel and that Samantha sold Mencia's guy some party favors. Rebe takes this really badly because she thought that her mother had promised that she was done with that business after she came out of jail. Guzman, meanwhile, goes to the dinner and it's horrible. He's competing with Samuel, who isn't even trying. It's just Guzman who feels threatened. Then the heartbreaking reality hits with Omar and Andar. I didn't feel it earlier when they were breaking up, but when Omar is crying to Andar's mom in the car and Andar is struggling to breathe over it while Samuel comforts him, it hits pretty hard. Andar asks Patrick if they can skip school, that nobody will notice, but Omar does notice that they're both gone. He overhears that there's a party at the house. He goes there, he sees the two of them together and kind of follows them inside and spies on them for a second, and thank goodness he then walks away. Then they have this debate at the school and Ari talks about Samuel's brother, the fact that he ran off while on probation, and Samuel walks off the stage. I should mention that Guzman was the one who shared this information with her, possibly giving her this idea for the debate to kind of destabilize Samuel. Cayetana runs into Philippe in the hallway and he asks her if she wants to come over that night, and she says yes. When she's there, she checks his computer to see if he deleted the video, and he has, but he's all, "Don't you trust me?" I mean, I would have said hell no, but he has some sad prince sob story and then pretends like he's chasing her away. Mencia meanwhile gets a new phone sent to her house by her older hotel guy, and I was wondering how on earth he knows where she lives, but he dropped her off once. Rebe, meanwhile, has also run away from home. Then we get an honest moment from Guzman, who admits to Ari that he doesn't actually look down on Samuel. He's jealous of him, that Samuel has the odds stacked against him, but he still kind of gets out ahead every time, and he tells her that he's kind of scared of losing her as well. In episode 6, Samuel decides that he wants to keep his academic and personal life separate, so he leaves. Then Ari finds his keys and she goes to the shower to give them to him, and she gets a little bit flirty. I'd forgotten at this point that they had already slept together earlier. These two, meanwhile, are giving each other looks in the hallway, so we know that that's not over. He tells her that she's trying to act high and mighty and he's bored of her playing hard to get. Benjamin catches him just as he's coming out of the bathroom and tells him to watch it. He didn't do all that just to have Philippe's old rumors about him revived. So Philippe's pretty much a known sex pest. Patrick and Andar are still hooking up, but Andar does go and see Omar after work because he's missed school. Omar says that he's going to quit school, he's happy working behind the bar, and I'm just like, you need to get it together. Guzman takes one step forward, two steps back when he sees Samuel talking to Benjamin, and he invites Benjamin to a family dinner. This is boring, Benjamin says yes. Patrick leaves the Lonely Prince on red. He doesn't really have many friends, they mostly just use him for social favors. For some reason, Mencia is still hanging out with her older hotel man, and Rebe is as sick of it as I am at this point. At the awkward dinner, Guzman and Benjamin butt heads at first, but Guzman ends up winning him over. Later, Samuel ends up walking in on Guzman and Ari hooking up, and it looks like Ari has this kind of game going on. I don't know. Mencia and Rebe end up staying up at her creepy older guy's hotel room for the night, and breakfast arrives for them the next morning. Older guy also gifts them tickets to a concert that everybody's dying to go to. Omar seems as though he's getting it together. He ends up going back to school. He looks like he'll be fine. Taking Guzman's advice, Benjamin asks his daughter Mencia to come home and says that Rebe can come as well, but Mencia refuses, even though it seems like Rebe might want to consider it. So Prince Philippe tries to say no, he can't get the group tickets to this very exclusive party/concert, but Patrick blackmails him because Patrick knows about those pesky little rumors as well. Mencia's older hotel man joins them at the party, and he tells her that he bought her all that stuff, and he basically tries to get what he thinks is his money's worth, and she pushes him off. By the way, when the prince tells Ari that him and Cayetana are having issues and that Cayetana doesn't trust him, Ari leans forward and says, well, with good reason. Patrick is reeling from rejection because Andar is hooking up with another guy at this party without him. He gets pretty violent and he knocks Ari to the ground. Samuel then admits to Ari that it hurts to see her with Guzman, and she later comes back to the empty club while he's cleaning up, and they hook up. Okay, so episode 7, Ari is sleeping with both Samuel and Guzman. She says she feels guilty for sneaking around and cheating. He feels a little shortchanged because he doesn't get to go out with her on dates, he doesn't get to see her during the day, and he has to see her with Guzman. She tells him that he's always waiting for everybody to make decisions in his life, he shouldn't be complaining. Patrick's still pretty salty about Andar hooking up with somebody else at the party. Omar says to him that he can relate, but Patrick doesn't want to admit that he's hurt and that he doesn't really have control. Andar then sees Omar give Patrick an innocent kiss. It's more like, sorry you're going through this, you'll be fine. So Prince Philippe's mother eventually comes to the school, and she sees on the security camera that her son is with Cayetana, and how dare he be with her when there's a whole school full of girls from good families. Benjamin says that she's the type to stick with her boyfriend though, so she's useful. Philippe's mother then invites Cayetana to come to the party because she wants to make formal introductions. So at Principal Benjamin's house, he introduces the kids to the president of the alumni club of the school, and it just so happens to be Mencia's older hotel man. I need her to get caught at this point because this is just too much. Benjamin does pick up on some of her weirdness, and he tells her that if she has a problem, she can always come to him. She predictably acts as though nothing's wrong though, and then her and her hotel guy start blackmailing each other. At the lake house, meanwhile, Andar is concerned that Patrick might be using Omar Omar says that this is none of his business and Andar is just jealous. Philippe invites Kaya to the party and tells her that she can meet this famous designer there and show him her designs because she is really talented. Ari is there to remind her that she's going into the lion's den and that she's a really silly social climber, and she insinuates that Kaya purposely left out her designs earlier so that Philippe could see them. So Kaya eventually gets to meet her fashion designer, and it turns out the whole don't meet your idol thing is true, because when she wants to show him her designs, he says he'd rather see them in his room, and he invites her there. Ari sees her look as though she's going to go with him into the lift, but she ends up saying no, and Ari sees this. Ari also ends up offering her 2,000 euros to design a custom dress for her for the New Year's party. Honestly, this was one of my favorite unexpected friendships of this season, and it was nice to see Ari have Cayetana's back. Over at the hotel, Rebe catches Mencia and her guy again. Mencia decides to go off with the hotel guy since he's blackmailing her anyway and she feels she has no choice. Rebe's mother eventually picks her up and gives her a pep talk. So it turns out that Omar and Patrick are basically using each other to get over Andar, but there seems to be a genuine friendship there as well. I can't tell yet. And then, oh no, Patrick shows up to Andar's house and intentionally video dials Omar so that Omar can hear him tell Andar that he really likes Omar. Andar warns Patrick that he really loved Omar and always will, and that Patrick had better not hurt him because Omar isn't the type to just fool around with. He's like, don't break his heart. And then he says he's going to stay out of the way. It's clear this isn't the way that Patrick wanted things to work out though. I'm guessing that he wanted to have Andar beg for him back and have Omar hear them hook up. Or maybe he wanted Omar to overhear Andar bad-talking him behind his back, and this backfires obviously because Andar wouldn't do that. Philippe and Kaya start making out in the car and she wants him to stop. She tells him several times, but he doesn't listen. She feels unsafe, but she does manage to escape. Over at the lake house, meanwhile, Ari, who's looking gorgeous by the way, meets both Guzman and Samuel. She tells Guzman that she's been seeing Samuel and she thinks that she's fallen in love with Samuel, but she's in love with Guzman too. She wants to keep both of them. The final episode, episode 8, opens with the three of them at the restaurant. Obviously Guzman and Samuel are fighting, but both guys leave her at the restaurant. Andar decides to take time to go off school to go traveling. He doesn't want to wait until the summer because he says life is short, and it's good to see Guzman and him hanging out again. It was kind of like the old days. Meanwhile at school, Rebe eventually tells Ari that she needs some help. She tells Ari all about the old hotel man and what Mencia's been going through, and she hopes that maybe Ari can get through to Mencia. Ari does confront Mencia about it, but Mencia says that if she tells Benjamin, she promises that nobody will ever see her again. Philippe tries to apologize to Kaya again. He tries to make excuses, saying that she sent mixed signals, and she's like, well, actually, I said no several times and you wouldn't stop. Benjamin sees all this play out on the security cameras. So Omar wants to give him and Andar another chance, but he says that he'll respect it if Andar doesn't want to. They kiss, Patrick sees this, and he's mad, of course. His whole plan has backfired. So I thought that this kiss was more of a, I love you, but this can't happen right now, so goodbye. But they end up actually getting together, Omar and Andar, and Andar's mother doesn't think it's a good idea. I hate this too, because these two are always staying for each other, and I got the sense that Andar really wanted to travel and do his own thing for a bit. But the comfort of that relationship and his love for Omar is kind of keeping him back. So Philippe's mother tries to bribe Cayetana into staying with Philippe and coming to the party. She says that the opportunities from their royal family could change her and her family's lives. It's really gross. So it's New Year's Eve and the party has been hosted by the royals. Both Guzman and Samuel ignore Ari, and Kaya tells off Philippe's mother and she goes and joins Ari. Philippe is kind of mad at his mother for butting in, but his mother says to him that if he really wants to be on his own, then so be it. He'll finally face the consequences of his actions, something he's never done before. Andar convinces Guzman to go and talk to Ari, but when he does, he sees Samuel with her, and Samuel is actually telling her that she needs to admit who she really wants to be with. She can't have it both ways, she can't have everything, and she needs to leave him alone and stop stringing him along if it's Guzman she wants. Mencia, meanwhile, is looking pretty sad at the party. Her old hotel man wants to spend New Year's Eve with her, and she's like, no, I can't, I have plans. And he's like, I know, I'm here in your plans. He's at the party. Patrick's also having a terrible time. He ends up sulking and hooking up with a rando. Then the absolute best thing happens. Omar tells Andar that he loves him, but Andar has to leave. So finally, Omar's letting go, they love each other, but they're saying goodbye. But they still get to spend New Year's Eve and some time together before he leaves. Samuel eventually tries to make up with Guzman, but they end up fighting, and meanwhile, both Ari and Rebe see Mencia on the pier with hotel guy. Rebe runs down and she kicks him and both girls run off. On the pier, Ari confronts hotel man and she's about to call her father and he punches her. Eventually Guzman gets there, but she is kind of dizzy and she tells him, no, go after the guy. She's so dizzy though that she ends up falling into the water. Guzman goes after hotel guy, they fight, and eventually Guzman shoots him with a flare gun. He then goes after Ari, but he sees that she's not on the pier anymore. Of course he doesn't see her in the water either because he doesn't think to look. Guzman, Samuel and Rebe all decide not to tell the police about Guzman shooting Mencia's abuser because his life would be over and he would go to jail. We see a scene with him and Ari in the hospital and he tells Ari that the guy ran off. Guzman also apologizes for acting the way that he did. Ari apologizes to him as well, but she knows that Samuel's the one that she wants to be with. Guzman and Samuel make up. Omar and Andar say their goodbyes and the two guys leave. Guzman and Andar are going backpacking or traveling together, by the way. I'm guessing Guzman and Samuel are bonded in friendship forever because we see a scene at the end with him, Rebe and Samuel throwing the creepy hotel man into the lake with some weights. I guess it's also worth mentioning that Prince Philippe has his tiny redemption arc. He calls his previous assault survivor and apologizes, admits what he did, and even says that she has him on tape admitting it. She can do with that as she pleases. So he's finally taking accountability. Mencia and Ari finally make up and they're sisters again. They're quite close. And Mencia, with Ari by her side and Patrick there as well, tells her father about everything. And that's it. That's season 4 of Elite. I mean, it wasn't absolute torture, even though I did yell at my screen a couple of times. I really don't like too much gratuitous sex on teen shows, but with this show, I knew what I was getting into, so sure. I would have preferred a whole new generation of students, but at the same time, it was so nice to see some of the OG kids. Ari definitely had the best arc, though. I started off really disliking her, and she eventually became one of my favorite characters. So yeah, feel free to share your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.